Alex Carter was known as a diligent student, a dreamer with aspirations of attending a prestigious college. The halls of Crestwood High echoed with whispers of ambition, but beneath the surface lay shadows that tainted the academic atmosphere. The heart of this turmoil was Miss Thompson, the English teacher whose strict grading policies and biting critiques turned her classroom into a battlefield. A mess. Thompson's reputation preceded her. She was feared by many for her unforgiving nature. Students dreaded her assignments, not just for their difficulty, but for how they reflected on them personally. He wielded grades like weapons, favoring those who fit into her narrow definition of excellence while punishing others without mercy. Alex watched as some students received praise and high marks, while his friends suffered under Miss Thompson's harsh glare. Samantha Lee, Alex's best friend and confidante, often confided in him about her struggles in Miss Thompson's class. "I don't understand why I keep getting low scores," she would say, frustration evident in her voice. "It's like no matter how hard I try, it's never enough." A sentiment echoed through the hearts of many students who felt belittled and defeated by Miss Thompson's relentless criticism. Each day brought new instances where Miss Thompson publicly humiliated students over minor mistakes, her sharp tongue cutting deeper than any failure could wound them academically. Jake, another student from their class, had broken down one day during a lesson after being chastised for misplacing a comma in an essay that he poured hours into crafting. Alex felt his heartache for Jake as he witnessed the boy crumble under the weight of ridicule. Despite these injustices unfolding around him, Alex battled an internal struggle. Fear held him captive like chains binding his voice. Spoke out? Would it only make things worse for himself or his friends? He grappled with feelings of helplessness each time he watched someone else get torn apart by Miss Thompson's words. Down inside him simmered a resolve, a flicker of courage ignited by witnessing so much suffering around him, and knowing that change needed to happen, that something had to be done to stop this cycle of harassment before it consumed anyone else's dreams or spirit. He often caught Samantha's eye during class when Miss Thompson unleashed another tirade against their peers. They both shared silent acknowledgments that they were far from alone in their pain, but trapped within its confines together. And so began Alex's journey, a quest not just for himself, but also for all those silenced by fear, of fight against an unjust system, led by someone who should have inspired them, instead of crushing their spirits beneath heavy boots disguised as authority figures. Little did they know that soon these feelings would transcend mere thoughts and ignite action, transforming dormant hopes into fierce determination to reclaim their voices from shadows cast by one manipulative teacher's reign over them all. Samantha took a deep breath as she approached Alex during lunch, her hands trembling slightly, holding in her feelings for too long, and now, it was time to share the weight that burdened her heart. "Alex," she whispered, glancing around to ensure no one was listening. "I can't take this anymore. Miss Thompson is she's awful." Her voice cracked as she spoke, reflecting the pain of her experience. "And?" Alex asked softly, his concern evident in his eyes. He knew Samantha had been struggling, but hadn't realized the extent of it. "He keeps telling me my work isn't good enough," Samantha said, tears welling up in her eyes. "Every time I ask for help, she brushes me off or says I'm not trying hard enough. And if I don't get a good grade on this assignment, I might lose my scholarship." Alex felt a surge of anger at the thought of someone he cared about being treated so unfairly. "That's not right, Sam. You deserve better than that." As they talked, memories flooded back, times when Miss Thompson had belittled students in front of their peers or manipulated grades based on personal grudges rather than merit. Wasn't just Samantha, many others were suffering under Miss Thompson's oppressive rule. Then came the moment that would change everything, a loud outburst from Jake, another classmate who had quietly endured Miss Thompson's harshness for too long. During class, he mispronounced a word while reading aloud, and instead of guiding him with kindness, Miss Thompson erupted into laughter. "This what we're learning, how to embarrass ourselves," she sneered, causing ripples of snickers throughout the classroom. Jake's face turned crimson as humiliation washed over him. He stammered an apology, before breaking down into tears right there in front of everyone. The room fell silent except for Jake's muffled cries, and Alex's heart raced at witnessing such cruelty firsthand. That was it, the final straw for Alex. "Enough is enough," he declared fiercely to Samantha once they were outside the classroom after Jake left in distress. "I won't let this go on any longer." Determined to make things right, Alex made a plan to gather evidence against Miss Thompson's tyrannical reign over their classroom, starting with recording conversations discreetly during lessons and encouraging classmates to share their experiences anonymously. With each passing day, his resolve only grew stronger as they collected stories from fellow students, all victims like himself and Samantha, who felt powerless against their teachers' abuses, but were ready to stand united for justice. This, he reassured Samantha one evening as they reviewed the recordings together in a quiet corner of the school library, filled with whispers and shadows from other late-night studiers lingering nearby. "I believe we can change things," Samantha replied quietly, but determinedly. Hope sparked within them, both like a flame flickering against darkness. The wheels were set in motion. There would be no turning back now as they prepared themselves for what lay ahead. Facing down fear itself through courage forged from shared struggle and unwavering friendship against injustice that lurked within their school halls. With the weight of unfairness pressing heavily on his shoulders, Alex knew that staying silent was no longer an option. A final straw had been drawn, and he could feel a fire igniting within him, a call to action that could not be ignored. He gathered his courage and approached Mr. Johnson, the school counselor known for his understanding nature. "Mr. Johnson," Alex began, his voice steady despite the tremors of anxiety coursing through him. "I need to talk to you about Miss Thompson. He's been manipulating grades and harassing students. My friends are suffering." "Mr. Johnson looked at him with concern, nodding slowly as Alex poured out every detail he had collected over the past weeks, the whispered conversations in hallways, the tears shed after class, the raw emotions of those who felt trapped under Miss Thompson's reign. "Thank you for coming forward, Alex," Mr. Johnson said after listening intently. "This is serious, and we need evidence to confront her effectively." That moment was a turning point for Alex. He was no longer just a victim, but a catalyst for change. Together with Samantha's help, they devised a plan to gather testimonies from their classmates discreetly. It took time and careful consideration as they reached out to others who had faced similar injustices without arousing suspicion. Several days, Alex recorded conversations during class sessions while pretending to take notes on assignments. He also created anonymous surveys where students could share their experiences without fear of retribution. Slowly but surely, a pattern emerged. Ms. Thompson's manipulation wasn't an isolated incident, but rather a systemic issue affecting multiple students across various assignments. Attention in school rose palpably as news of their actions spread among classmates. Some rallied behind them like stalwart allies, while others expressed trepidation about speaking out against such an intimidating figure. The day approached for the meeting with the school board members, a gathering poised to discuss their findings. Alex felt both empowered and terrified at what lay ahead of them. Each passing hour leading up to it, doubts crept into his mind like shadows stretching across twilight. Leave him? Would this put himself or Samantha in danger? But every time fear threatened to overpower hope. Memories flooded back. The faces of classmates burdened by despair under Miss Thompson's critical gaze reminded him why he needed to stand firm. On presentation day, as he stood before the school board members along with Mr. Johnson by his side for support, nerves twisted like vines around his insides, threatening to suffocate him, but he inhaled deeply and steadied himself. "This isn't just about me," he started passionately. When given the floor, his voice resonated with emotion as he unfolded their story before those who held authority over Miss Thompson's fate. He shared recorded clips revealing her harsh words toward students interspersed with heartfelt testimonies, showcasing how her actions affected lives beyond grades, a tapestry woven together by pain, but threaded through with resilience born from unity among fellow victims seeking justice. He spoke truthfully about what transpired behind closed doors within that classroom, marked by intimidation instead of inspiration. He saw more than just fear mirrored back at him. There were glimmers of recognition among board members who listened closely, and perhaps even sparks of empathy kindling within them too. Each word carried weight far beyond mere utterances. It was an ode not only to those silenced, but also an invitation calling forth anyone willing enough to join this fight against injustice that plagued their educational environment so long. Unnoticed. And so began their stand against oppression, igniting not only courage in themselves, but also lighting paths forward where others may walk unshackled from chains binding voices drowned beneath echoing halls, once ruled by terror disguised as authority. The day had arrived, and the atmosphere in the school felt charged with anticipation. Alex stood outside the meeting room where the school board convened, his heart pounding like a drum in his chest. He glanced at Samantha, who stood beside him, her expression a mixture of nervousness and determination. Together they had fought hard to gather evidence against Miss Thompson, and now it was time to share their findings. Inside the room, board members shuffled papers and murmured amongst themselves. The air was thick with tension as parents and students took their seats, eager to hear what Alex had to say. One final deep breath, he stepped into the spotlight. "Good evening," he began, his voice slightly trembling but growing steadier as he continued. "I'm Alex Carter, and I stand before you not just for myself but for countless students who have suffered under Miss Thompson's manipulation and harassment." As he spoke, images from weeks past flooded his mind, students silenced by fear, their dreams stifled beneath harsh words like weeds choked by concrete. He clicked through slides filled with recorded conversations revealing Miss Thompson's cruel remarks and unfair grading practices. Each clip echoed hauntingly in the room. "It told me how she laughed when he mispronounced a word during class," Alex continued passionately. Another described how her grades were altered based on personal biases, rather than actual performance. He relayed these stories of anguish faced by his peers. Murmurs spread throughout the crowd, a wave of shared understanding washing over them. With each testimony shared aloud, more students nodded in recognition they too knew this pain all too well. A school board listened intently as Alex detailed how Miss Thompson created an environment where fear reigned supreme, a place where creativity was stifled under pressure instead of nurtured. "Education should empower us," Alex asserted firmly, making eye contact with each board member present. "Should inspire confidence rather than crush spirits." Finally, after what felt like an eternity of speaking from his heart, Alex concluded, "We cannot allow this kind of behavior to continue unchecked within our schools any longer." A silence fell upon the room as the weight of his words settled heavily in the air, the truth laid bare for all to see. Liberation among board members that stretched on forever in anxious anticipation for Alex and Samantha outside those heavy doors. They finally emerged looking somber yet hopeful. "Mr. Johnson approached them first. Pride gleamed in his eyes, despite what happened next being uncertain at best, a calculated risk taken amidst overwhelming odds stacked against them previously. "A board has reviewed everything thoroughly," Mr. Johnson announced carefully while adjusting his glasses, nervously perched atop his nose, as if readying himself for bad news, but it never came. Instead came something far more empowering. "They have voted unanimously to suspend Thompson, pending further investigation into her conduct." Washed over them like a warm embrace, their courage had indeed paid off. Cheers erupted behind them from fellow students who had rallied around this cause, witnesses encouraged now without fear, thanks to new protective policies established post-revelation about abuses happening right under everyone's noses here at Crestwood High School. In that moment, a collective sigh of relief echoed within each student's heart, uniting them together stronger than ever. We're just individuals burdened alone, but allies committed towards building change, moving forward hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder, forging ahead into brighter futures ahead, filled once again with hope. As days passed afterward, reflecting back onto everything learned throughout this experience, the initial fear transformed into empowerment, shaped by standing up against wrongdoing, brought forth clarity, illuminating paths towards justice where none existed before. Alex smiled softly, thinking about how powerful unity truly is. It makes even mountains seem climbable when hearts beat together towards one singular goal. Protecting one another, creating safe spaces, fostering respect, compassion, learning environments free from negativity, spreading shadows across lives. So many deserved better choices made through action, taken, grounded, firmly rooted, deeply held. Values allowing light break through darkened corridors, oftentimes shrouded ignorance disguised cleverly beneath authority figures' veils, hiding malicious intent, lurking silently, waiting prey, vulnerable, unsuspecting souls trapped, willingly caught unaware. And so began a new chapter, not just written on paper alone, but etched forevermore within every soul touched by bravery, inspired through voices rising together, united, bold, confidently declaring loud, clear. "Not stand idly by anymore. Change starts here with us.